Lena Carter always lived in her sister's shadow until the night Emily Carter vanished without a trace. Now Emily's boyfriend is leaning on Lena for comfort. Her best friend is asking too many questions, and the perfect older sister has become a ghost. But as investigators dig deeper, they begin to uncover a twisted web of obsession, jealousy, and betrayal. Was this a tragic disappearance, or the ultimate betrayal by blood? What happened when sisterly love turned deadly? Emily Carter was the kind of woman people noticed when she walked into a room, not just for her beauty, but for the way she carried herself. Graceful, intelligent, and always composed, she seemed to have everything together. She worked as a graphic designer at a top firm in the city, lived in a stylish apartment downtown, and was dating Jake Wilson, a man who looked like he had stepped out of a magazine. To the outside world, Emily had a perfect life, and for a while, even she believed it. Her younger sister Lena lived just 20 minutes away, in a cramped studio apartment. While Emily's days were filled with meetings, gallery visits, and romantic dinners, Lena worked part-time at a local bookstore, struggling to finish her degree and barely keeping up with rent. Whenever she visited Emily, she felt like she was walking into another world. Everything in Emily's apartment was perfectly arranged, from the scented candles on the coffee table to the vintage records by the turntable. And then there was Jake, charming, confident, and effortlessly attentive to Emily. Lena would sit quietly on the couch as they talked, smiling politely, sipping wine she couldn't afford, and wondering how her life had ended up so far behind. She told herself it was just bad luck, poor timing, or maybe even her own fault. But somewhere deep down, a darker thought was beginning to form. Why did Emily always get everything? The sisters had grown up in the same house, with the same parents and the same upbringing. But even back then, things had always seemed to tilt slightly in Emily's favor. She was the golden child, the one who won school awards, brought home perfect grades, and never broke the rules. Lena had always been different, quiet, sensitive, often misunderstood. Teachers compared them, family members compared them. Even strangers assumed Lena was tagging along behind her more successful sister. Despite everything, Lena tried to keep the peace. On holidays, she smiled for the photos. She sent birthday cards. She laughed at jokes that stung. But over the years, something inside her began to rot. Every time Emily posted a photo with Jake, every time she shared a new job milestone or a vacation story, Lena felt it, a quiet burn, a slow, creeping anger. Then came the day that changed everything. Emily had invited Lena over for dinner, a small, casual get-together. Jake was there, of course, looking as perfect as ever. He offered Lena a drink, remembered her favorite kind of wine, and even complimented her dress. For a moment, Lena forgot her jealousy. She felt seen, appreciated. Then Emily walked into the room, and the attention shifted instantly. Jake's eyes followed her, filled with admiration. Lena watched as her sister effortlessly reclaimed the spotlight, laughing, teasing, owning the room without even trying. That night, as Lena lay in bed replaying every moment, a thought came to her, unwelcome but impossible to ignore. What if Jake had met her first? Would things have been different? Would she be the one living in the perfect apartment, with the perfect boyfriend, the perfect life? She tried to shake it off, but she couldn't. The idea took root. From that moment on, something changed in Lena. She stopped seeing Emily as just her sister. Emily became a symbol of everything Lena didn't have, everything she believed she deserved. And Jake became the prize. She didn't know how or when, but she began to believe it was only a matter of time before things shifted. She was going to have the life she wanted, no matter the cost. And the first step? Get rid of the one person standing in her way. Lena couldn't stop thinking about Jake. He had become more than just her sister's boyfriend. He was a fixation, an image that played on a loop in her mind. Every detail about him fascinated her. The way he smiled with one corner of his mouth slightly higher than the other. The quiet confidence in his voice when he spoke. Even the way he dressed, casual but polished, seemed perfect. He wasn't just attractive, he felt unreachable, like something she could never truly have. But that only made her want him more. At first, Lena tried to fight it. She told herself it was just infatuation, that it would fade, but it didn't. In fact, it got worse. She began scrolling through Emily's social media late at night, staring at photos of them together, laughing, hugging, kissing. She zoomed in on Jake's face, looking for signs. Was he really happy? Did he truly love Emily? Or was he just with her because she was the first sister he met? The thoughts turned obsessive. Lena began collecting pieces of information about him, subtle things that seemed harmless on the surface. She asked Emily casual questions. How did they meet? What were his favorite foods? Where did he like to hang out? Emily never suspected a thing. Lena was just the curious younger sister, right? But every answer fueled the fire. It didn't take long for Lena to start showing up at places she knew Jake liked. A specific coffee shop downtown where he worked on his laptop some afternoons. A bookstore he once mentioned in passing. A gym where he took weekend yoga classes. She never made contact, at least not at first. She just watched, observed, took mental notes. She told herself it was research, preparation, and all the while the fantasy grew stronger. Then, something unexpected happened. One Saturday, Lena bumped into Jake outside the coffee shop. It wasn't planned, or at least, not exactly. She had gone there hoping to see him, but she didn't expect a real encounter. He smiled, friendly and warm, recognizing her instantly. They talked for a few minutes, nothing deep, just light conversation. He asked how she was doing, how her classes were going. He seemed genuinely interested. That brief exchange was all it took. Lena replayed the moment again and again. She dissected every word, every gesture. She convinced herself there had been something more in his eyes. Something unspoken. Maybe he was curious about her too. Maybe deep down he knew he had chosen the wrong sister. From that moment on, Lena began to escalate. She created a fake online account and started messaging Jake anonymously, pretending to be a concerned friend. The messages were subtle at first, hints that Emily wasn't who she seemed, that she might be hiding something. That maybe she wasn't loyal. Lena crafted the words carefully, planting just enough doubt to make Jake wonder but not enough to alert Emily. At the same time, Lena continued inserting herself into their lives. She visited Emily more often, offering to help with errands or bring over dinner. Every moment with Jake was an opportunity. A smile here, a shared joke there. She studied their relationship like a puzzle, waiting for a crack to appear. And one day, she found it. Emily mentioned she was busy with work and had been canceling plans with Jake more often than usual. Lena saw her chance. She made sure to be there, available, comforting, understanding. She painted herself as the opposite of Emily, more fun, more attentive, more present. Jake began texting her occasionally, just friendly messages, but to Lena, it was everything. She believed it was working. Slowly, she was becoming a part of his world. But underneath the surface, her obsession was growing darker. What started as admiration had twisted into manipulation. And the more she fed it, the more she realized something chilling. She didn't just want Jake anymore. She wanted Emily gone. Lena no longer saw her sister as family. She saw her as an obstacle. Every smile Emily gave Jake felt like a personal attack. Every hug between them, every loving glance, every casual touch made Lena's stomach twist with a sickening mix of rage and longing. She couldn't stand it anymore. Watching them together was like slowly suffocating, and she was tired of pretending to be okay. The more she thought about it, the more she became convinced that Emily didn't deserve what she had. Lena believed that Emily had taken something that was meant for her, and if she had to take it back, she would. The plan didn't come all at once. It started as a passing thought, a flicker of darkness that she quickly pushed away. But it kept coming back, louder and more insistent each time. What if Emily disappeared? What if Jake was left alone, confused, grieving, vulnerable? Who would he turn to? Who would be there to comfort him? Lena could see it all play out in her mind. And it felt right. She began laying the groundwork carefully, making sure every move looked natural. First, she created distance between Emily and Jake, without them even realizing it. She found ways to make Emily late for their dates, deleting reminders from her phone when she borrowed it, pretending to pass along wrong times or addresses. Lena accidentally mentioned that she had seen Jake talking to another woman, planting seeds of doubt. She started sending anonymous text messages to Jake from burner phones, hinting that Emily was hiding things, that she wasn't being honest. He never replied, but Lena knew he was reading them. The tension between him and Emily began to show. But the most important part of the plan was keeping Emily unaware. Lena played the role of the supportive sister perfectly. She brought over dinner when Emily worked late. She listened to her talk about relationship stress, nodding, pretending to care. All the while, she was fueling the fire from both ends, stoking Jake's suspicions and draining Emily's energy. Then, Lena took things a step further. She started tracking Emily's movements. She installed a small GPS tracker under her car, something she had read about online. She memorized Emily's schedule, learned her routines. She even copied the spare key to her apartment when Emily wasn't looking. It wasn't just about control anymore. It was about precision. She needed to know everything, every step, every minute. She began rehearsing the night in her head. The night it would all end. She chose a Friday. Emily usually worked late and had plans to meet Jake afterward. Lena knew the route she would take, the roads she preferred, the quiet stretch near the edge of the woods where the traffic cameras stopped and the streetlights dimmed. It was the perfect spot. No one would see, no one would hear. Lena didn't care about how horrible it was. She had convinced herself it was necessary. Her future depended on it. In the days leading up to it, Lena acted completely normal. She even spent the evening before helping Emily pick out an outfit for her dinner with Jake. She smiled, gave compliments, acted like everything was fine. Inside she was calm, cold and focused. She had made peace with what she was about to do. There was no turning back. On the night she chose, Lena slipped out unnoticed, wearing gloves, dark clothes and a hood to hide her face. She waited in her car, parked off the road, just beyond the trees. Emily's car passed by, right on schedule. Lena followed. No one would suspect her. No one ever suspected the quiet sister, the one always standing in the background. But Lena knew the truth. She wasn't in the background anymore. She was the one pulling the strings. And soon, she would have everything she wanted. The night was colder than usual for early spring, the kind of chill that crept under your skin and made everything feel sharper, more real. The sky was overcast, the moon hidden behind a thick layer of clouds. It was the kind of night that swallowed sound, that made even the quietest places feel haunted. Lena sat in her car on the side of a narrow road just outside the city limits, her headlights off, hands steady on the steering wheel. Her heart wasn't racing. In fact, it had never felt more still. She had been planning this for weeks. Every detail was in place. Emily's text to Jake had already been sent. Lena had composed it herself, using a clone of Emily's phone she had set up weeks ago. It was simple. Emergency. I'll explain later. Meet me at the usual place. Jake would be waiting for a dinner that would never happen. Confused but patient. Lena didn't need to worry about him. He wasn't the focus tonight. It was Emily's car that appeared first, the silver sedan slowing as it approached the sharp curve where the forest crept closest to the road. Lena watched from behind the tree line, crouched in the shadows. She had parked her car a half-mile back, hidden in a ditch. Everything she needed was in her backpack. Gloves, rope, scarf, plastic sheeting. She had rehearsed it all again and again. There would be no struggle, no noise, no evidence. Emily pulled over, as expected, checking her phone and frowning. She stepped out, confused, scanning the dark surroundings. The road was empty. No lights, no voices, just the soft rustling of wind in the trees. That's when Lena moved. The details of what happened in those few moments would remain known only to Lena. It was quick, controlled, silent. There was no scream, no call for help. Just a brief struggle, then stillness. Lena didn't cry, she didn't hesitate. She felt nothing but cold, determined purpose. She dragged Emily's body into the woods, far enough to be hidden but not so deep that she would lose her way back. She didn't bury her, not yet. She had another plan for that. Instead, she left her under a layer of fallen branches and pine needles, carefully arranged to look like nature had done the work. Then she returned to the car, cleaned her hands, wiped the steering wheel, and drove Emily's car a few miles further before abandoning it along the side of the road. She made sure the door was unlocked and that her sister's phone, handbag and one earring were left behind, just enough to create mystery. Enough to make it look like a disappearance, not a murder. Then she walked, cutting through the woods, until she reached her own car. Every step was measured, every breath calculated. By the time Lena arrived home, hours later, she had rehearsed the story she would tell. She had no idea where Emily had gone. She had spoken to her earlier that day, but everything seemed normal. She'd be the first to raise alarm. The concerned sister. The one who cared. When Jake called the next morning, worried and confused, Lena's voice trembled just enough to sound real. When the police arrived and began asking questions, she played her part flawlessly, shocked, heartbroken, afraid. But deep down, she wasn't afraid at all. She had done it, her sister was gone. And for the first time in her life, Lena felt like she was finally free. No more comparisons. No more living in someone else's shadow. The world had no idea what had happened that night. And that's exactly how she planned it. The days after Emily's disappearance unfolded like a carefully written script. At least, that's how Lena saw it. News of Emily's vanishing spread quickly, first through social media, then the local press. Her face appeared on flyers, on news reports, on tearful live streams pleading for answers, but no one had any. There were no witnesses, no video footage, and no signs of foul play. The abandoned car only raised more questions. It was as if she had simply vanished into the night. Lena watched the chaos from a distance, keeping her expression composed even as those around her fell apart. Jake was devastated. He stopped going to work, barely ate, barely slept. He spent his days calling Emily's phone, even though it had long since been taken into police custody. His voicemail messages grew more desperate by the day, as if hoping that somehow she would pick up. Lena stayed close to him, supportive, patient, always available. She visited every day, bringing food, sitting with him in silence, pretending to grieve. To the world she was the image of the heartbroken sister, stepping in to hold things together. But behind the sympathy in her eyes was cold calculation. She knew exactly what she was doing. She slowly began reshaping Emily's absence into her own presence. She offered to help Jake sort through Emily's things, clean up the apartment, go through the mail. She started small, wearing one of Emily's sweaters for comfort, lighting her sister's favorite candle scent, playing her favorite music in the background. Jake didn't resist. He was too broken to notice the shift. Then Lena moved in. At first, it was temporary. She said it didn't feel right to be alone, that it helped to be near someone who also loved Emily. Jake agreed. It made sense. And Lena used every moment to tighten her grip. She cooked for him, took care of errands, listened to his stories about Emily with a perfect blend of sadness and strength. She never spoke negatively about her sister. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she let Jake's grief hollow him out while she quietly filled the space left behind. But not everyone was convinced. Maya Blake, Emily's best friend, had known her for over a decade. She had seen the subtle tensions between the sisters long before anyone else had noticed. She remembered moments at parties, how Lena would stare at Jake a second too long, how her smile would falter when the attention shifted to Emily. Maya hadn't said anything then, but now, her gut told her something wasn't right. What troubled Maya the most was Lena's composure. While everyone else was frantically searching, posting updates and joining volunteer groups. Lena seemed too still, too in control. There were no tearful breakdowns, no frantic phone calls, just quiet concern. It didn't sit right. Then came the real red flag. One afternoon during a visit, Maya noticed Lena wearing Emily's bracelet, a delicate silver chain that Emily never took off. Maya said nothing at the time, but her mind began connecting the dots. Lena had changed since Emily vanished. Not broken, but brighter, more alive. Like someone who had been waiting for something, and now that something had finally happened. Still, she had no proof. Just a gut feeling. Lena, unaware that Maya was watching, continued her quiet invasion. She started leaving her clothes in Jake's drawers, cooking his favorite meals, touching his arm just a little longer than necessary. At first, he recoiled, but grief has a way of making people vulnerable. Slowly he stopped pulling away. He started leaning on her, trusting her. And Lena was ready. She had eliminated the one person standing in her way. Now, she was taking her place, piece by piece. Maya couldn't sleep. Every night she lay awake with a growing sense of dread pressing against her chest. Something about Emily's disappearance didn't feel random or sudden. It felt staged, wrong, and no matter how hard she tried to dismiss it, her thoughts kept circling back to Lena. There was the bracelet, yes. But there was more. The calmness, the timing, the strange closeness she had developed with Jake almost immediately after Emily vanished. Maya had seen grief before. Real grief, and it didn't look like what Lena was displaying. Lena wasn't breaking down. She wasn't falling apart. She was adapting, replacing. It started eating at Maya so much that she began digging. She remembered that Emily had an old tablet she barely used anymore. One afternoon, under the pretense of helping Jake pack up some of Emily's things, Maya found it tucked into the side drawer of a nightstand. The device was still charged, and by some stroke of luck, Emily had never logged out of her accounts. Maya scrolled through messages, looking for anything strange. That's when she found them. Dozens of messages from an unknown number. Some were short and cryptic. Don't trust him, or he's lying again. Others were longer, hinting that Jake might be cheating or keeping secrets. But what struck Maya most was the tone. It wasn't just a friend trying to help. It was someone deliberately trying to poison Emily's mind. The messages weren't just suspicious, they were manipulative. The number was unlisted, but Maya had worked in IT for years. With the right tools and a little patience, she traced the prepaid phone's purchase history online. The device had been ordered under a fake name, but the billing address used Lena's apartment. Maya's hands went cold. She compiled everything, the texts, the delivery receipt, screenshots, dates, and took them straight to the police. She wasn't going to confront Lena herself, not without backup. And thankfully, Detective Harris had already started looking into inconsistencies in Lena's statements. Maya's information gave him exactly what he needed to dig deeper. By now, Lena and Jake were practically inseparable. She had taken over the lease Emily once signed. Her belongings now filled the closets. She cooked Jake's meals, washed his clothes, and smiled at him across the breakfast table like nothing had ever happened. Jake was too lost in sorrow to notice the trap that had been built around him. But Maya noticed everything. Determined not to let her friend disappear without a trace, she pushed the investigation harder, urging the police to check Lena's home. Detective Harris obtained a warrant, and what they found during the search chilled everyone involved. Behind the shed in Lena's backyard was a rose garden, neatly kept, oddly out of place compared to the rest of the poorly maintained yard. At first, it looked innocent, beautiful, even. But when officers started digging beneath the largest bush, they uncovered a small rusted box. Inside were items no one expected to find: Emily's missing earring, a scarf with dried blood, a half-burned photo of Jake and Emily with a knife slash through it, and a phone SIM card. Forensics confirmed the blood was Emily's. The SIM card, once restored, revealed even more disturbing texts, drafts and notes Lena had written to herself. Messages she had never sent. Obsessive, angry words about being second best, about taking back what was rightfully hers. The evidence was damning. The arrest was swift. When the police arrived at Jake's apartment, Lena was in the kitchen, making coffee, wearing Emily's robe. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She simply looked at Detective Harris with a strange smile and said nothing at all. Maya stood outside, watching the squad car disappear into the distance. She didn't feel relief, not yet, because Emily still hadn't been found. And somewhere beneath all that silence, the truth still lingered, waiting to be unearthed. The neighborhood had always been quiet. The kind where people waved at each other from across lawns and rarely locked their doors. But after Lena's arrest, the silence in the air turned heavy, like the whole street was holding its breath. Word spread quickly, whispers about the sweet younger sister, now accused of something unthinkable. Behind closed curtains, people speculated, wondering how long she had been pretending. But there was one question louder than all the rest. Where was Emily? Detective Harris was determined to find out. The case wasn't over just because Lena was in custody. Without a body, it was hard to make anything stick in court. They had enough to charge her, yes, but not enough to bury the lies completely. He needed to find Emily. He needed to know what Lena had done and where she had done it. So he went back to the beginning. He revisited every place tied to Lena, her apartment, her storage unit, her childhood home, even the bookstore where she had once worked. But it wasn't until he reviewed drone footage of Lena's backyard that something strange caught his eye. While most of the lawn looked naturally overgrown and untouched, there was one section of the rose garden that had been recently trimmed. Perfect lines, fresh mulch, like it was maintained with care. Too much care. The next morning, a full forensic team returned to Lena's home. They began excavating the rose garden, slowly, carefully, not knowing what they might find. Shovels moved inch by inch. Every root, every stone, every inch of dirt was sifted through. It was late afternoon when someone called out. Beneath the largest bush, deeper than expected, they struck something solid, a layer of plastic, thick, industrial, wrapped tightly and buried well. What they uncovered was a shallow grave, horrifying, but clinical. The body was wrapped with precision, layers of plastic and duct tape used to preserve it. Lena had gone to great lengths to delay decomposition. Dental records later confirmed what everyone already suspected. It was Emily. Inside the wrappings were more disturbing details. Emily's hands had been tied with rope. Her scarf was still around her neck. There were scratches on her wrists and dirt under her nails, proof that she had fought, even if just for a moment. The finality of it crushed the last bits of hope that had clung to her name. The news hit the public like a thunderclap. Body of missing woman found in sister's garden. Headlines spread across every major outlet. Photos of Emily smiling in summer dresses now stood beside stark images of crime scene tape and officers in hazmat suits. But one person hadn't seen the headlines yet. Jake. Detective Harris was the one to tell him. When he showed Jake the evidence, the messages, the photographs, the recovered remains, Jake sat frozen. His eyes didn't blink. His lips barely moved. He whispered Emily's name once and then stared at the floor. In that moment, he realized he had been sleeping beside a killer, letting her hold him, letting her comfort him. The thought alone was too much to bear. Lena, meanwhile, stayed silent. During interrogations, she offered no confessions, no apologies, not even denials. She answered every question with blank stares, as though the world outside her mind had ceased to matter. There were no tears, no guilt, just silence. Detective Harris had seen many things in his career, but never a case so coldly calculated. He wasn't just looking at a crime of passion. He was looking at obsession sharpened into cruelty, sisterhood twisted into rivalry, until love meant nothing and jealousy meant everything. And now, with Emily found, there was one last thing to do. Make sure Lena never saw freedom again. The trial of Lena Carter was the most talked-about case in the state that year. Courtrooms filled quickly, reporters lined the sidewalks, and millions watched online as the story unfolded in chilling detail. What stunned everyone wasn't just the brutality of the crime, it was how calculated it had been. Lena, once seen as shy and reserved, now stood revealed as a woman who had methodically destroyed her own sister to claim her life. She showed no remorse. Dressed in simple, pale clothing, she sat silently beside her defense attorney, her face blank, her eyes distant. Some believed she was in shock. Others said she was simply emotionless, untouched by the horror she had caused. She never looked at Jake, never once met Maya's glare from the gallery. She kept her head slightly tilted, almost curious, as if watching someone else's story being told. But it was hers, every gruesome detail. The prosecution laid out the evidence methodically, the fake texts sent to Jake to manipulate him, the GPS tracker hidden under Emily's car, the burner phones tied to Lena's name, the photos in the buried box, the blood-stained scarf, the SIM card filled with messages Lena had written to herself, twisted thoughts about jealousy, love, and revenge. Most chilling were the entries that described Emily not as a person, but as a barrier, a wall between Lena and the life she thought she deserved. Then came the photographs of the grave. The jury fell silent as images of Emily's body, wrapped in layers of plastic, were projected on the screen. One juror visibly winced, another wiped tears from her eyes. The room was filled with a heavy stillness. Not even Lena moved. She just stared, expressionless, like a ghost watching her own crime. Jake took the stand next. His voice trembled as he described the confusion, the grief, and finally, the overwhelming horror of realizing he had been comforted by the same hands that had ended Emily's life. He admitted to missing signs, to trusting too easily, and when asked if he had ever loved Lena, he answered firmly, no. Not for a second. Maya testified too. She told the court about the bracelet, the tablet, the fake messages. Her voice was strong, but her eyes were tired. She had spent months haunted by guilt, feeling like she hadn't done enough. But she had done what mattered most. She had followed her instincts, and in the end, that instinct had uncovered the truth. The defense tried to argue mental illness. They painted Lena as a fragile woman, broken by years of comparison, driven to madness by neglect and envy, but it didn't hold. The evidence was too precise, too careful. Lena hadn't snapped. She had planned, step by step, without emotion, without mercy. The jury took only 5 hours to reach a verdict: guilty, on all counts. Lena was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She showed no reaction as the sentence was read aloud. No tears, no anger, just silence, as always, like she had finally become what she always wanted to be: untouchable, alone in her own world. After the trial, Jake moved out of the apartment he once shared with Emily. He never looked back. Maya continued visiting Emily's parents, who had aged visibly during the ordeal. On Emily's birthday, they planted a small rose bush in her memory, not far from the forest where she had once dreamed of building a home. But even after justice was served, the scars remained. People often ask how someone could do something so monstrous to their own blood. But the answer doesn't lie in a single moment. It lies in the quiet, festering cracks of jealousy, in the spaces where love should be, but never was. Because Lena didn't just kill her sister. She erased her, and tried to become her.